In many ways, the kitchen is the true heart of any home. It's where we feed our bodies and our souls. It's where we gather with loved ones to nourish our lives. And it's also one of the most difficult aspects of any tiny house design to really get right. And in today's episode, we're going to take a look back at some of our absolute favorite tiny house kitchen designs. Over the years, we've seen a lot of great tiny house kitchens, and here are some ideas for designing a kitchen that makes preparing a meal a joy. As with all aspects of design, the key is to know how you'll use the space. If you're a master chef who needs a big kitchen, then design for that. If you've never really moved past heating up a can of soup in the microwave, be honest with yourself and don't install a chef's kitchen. Remember, in the world of small space design, every aspect that you add to a space subtracts from another area. So it's really important to pick the priorities that are right for you. Kyron used to work as a chef, and cooking is still a huge part of his life, so he also decided to make it a huge part of his home.
This is my pride and joy. I still make the joke that I designed a kitchen and built a tiny house around it. This is where Natalia and I love to spend a lot of time, a lot of eating, a lot of cooking, a lot of tasting, playing, and this is definitely what I do for fun.
Fantastic. So talk to me about the design of the kitchen here.
Kitchen is probably bigger than what you'd find in most standard apartments. I deliberately designed it in a way so all the food is just stored in one area. All the prep stuff is stored in another area. All the cooking stuff in one area, cleaning in one area, and all the plates and crockery. So we've had 3 people in here cooking, not an issue.
As with all aspects of small space design, making sure there is ample storage should always be at the forefront of your design considerations. Over in Brisbane, Colin, who used to work as a cabinet maker, made sure that no space was wasted when designing the cabinetry in his tiny kitchen.
Yeah, so the kitchen, I worked as a cabinet maker for like 15 years, so just having it functional as well as looking really good was important. So part of that was to plan where things go, using as much space as we can, putting extra drawers in, putting even drawers, say, in underneath the kickboards that come in and out. Using that space as well as we can was important. Down in this part, there's more storage. So using all that space all back through there.
Yeah, great.
Even this one here hasn't got a drawer or anything, so we've been able to put a little flip-up lid there and a bit of storage down in underneath that one.
Using that toe kick space for extra storage is such a great idea, and this was also done really well in Tom and Caro's off-grid tiny home.
So one interesting thing that we did as well was with the toe kick drawers. So we had shallow drawers like that in the toe kick, but we also wanted to be able to stack some plates into those drawers. And so this way I combined a normal drawer with a toe kick drawer to make a very deep drawer that fits all our plates in there. And we repeated that across the kitchen as well.
What a good idea. When you've got a deep pantry or cupboard, things are bound to get lost and forgotten. Out of sight, out of mind, and I think we've all had that moment where an item has been found at the back of a shelf and it's years past its use by. To avoid this, we love the pull-out pantry design. Mark's DIY tiny house makes sure everything is really accessible.
This is my pantry, these double doors here. So I've made everything so it can slide out so I can get access to stuff really easily. So down the bottom here, we've got these baskets that slide out that I can store stuff in. And then up the top, I have this whole area here that slides out, and so I can get to everything and the whole space is used without having to try and reach in and get stuff that's buried. So yeah, I'm finding this is working really nice for me. I quite like my coffee, so it was a bit of a prerequisite in the design that I had to have the coffee station. So to get access to this, I made another slide out here so that the whole thing comes out. If I've got to top the machine up with water and I've got to fill this with beans, the grinder, then I can just slide it out and get access and pop it back in again. So yeah, that's the coffee machine.
Over in Australia, tiny house designer Jess has mixed her storage zones to make her home work for her. And for the size of the kitchen, you have a lot of storage in here.
Ample amount of storage. I've actually got several cupboards or shelves that are not exactly full.
Nice.
And at the end of the kitchen, I've got a full height pull-out pantry, and opposite the pull-out pantry is my wardrobe. I love the simplicity of tiny houses and just how much you could fit within a small space, how clever you could be within such a space like your kitchen and storage for wardrobes and things like that. Items could be multifunctional. We don't need so much in order to live comfortably.
Sometimes it works really well to have items on display, but those beautiful decorative shelves also mean a lot of work keeping things tidy, which isn't always easy to do. In Melbourne, Shani and Christian have beautifully designed all of their storage to be hidden to reduce visual clutter and help keep their home nice and zen. And it looks like you've got a lot of storage in the kitchen too.
Yes, we definitely wanted to make sure everything was put away, that it wasn't open on shelves and feeling really cluttered. Because a tiny house being tiny, things can feel cluttered really quickly. We just wanted it to be all the way, looking neat, minimal. Our washing machine is concealed behind doors, our fridge. We just really wanted to be able to access things when needed and put them away.
I really like that idea, just keeping it very clean, very simple, and then when it's not in use, out of sight, out of mind.
Yeah.
And then of course you do still have easy access to the things that you use frequently, like your sink and the stove and kettle.
Yeah, we have tea multiple times a day, so that's definitely always out on the counter.
Honestly, I probably would have hidden the stovetops if I could have, but it was harder than it seemed.
Yeah. We had to make a few design changes along the way, but we're really happy with how it turned out. And our beautiful cabinet maker actually cut out that little piece of wood for us to hide away dirty dishes in an emergency.
Sometimes it's really nice to differentiate between different zones in your house, and one of the ways that this is done beautifully in the kitchen is to simply raise up the floor level just a little bit. This helps to create a slight visual separation in the space without actually enclosing it, and it also has some surprising benefits to add extra storage. And it is nice stepping up into the kitchen as well, because it does just create this sort of feeling of moving into a different zone of the home.
Yeah, I think that was exactly the kind of the thinking that we had. Sometimes you feel like, everything's in the same space, kind of sharing the lounge rooms, like butt up right against the kitchen, and they kind of bleed into each other. And we kind of like that sort of delineation of spaces kind of thing. One of the main reasons as well to lift it up was to take advantage of all this kind of floor space as storage. I think I worked out there's about 3 cubic meters of extra storage created just by, lifting up the floor by a foot. So yeah, this whole area, everything we're on top of right now is all under floor kind of drawers and stuff like that for storage.
If your kitchen is spatially impaired, and in a tiny house it will be, it's great to use some simple design tricks to help make it feel more palatial. This can be done with the help of well-placed windows and also the use of mirrors to help visually extend the space. Shay did this exceptionally well in her tiny home. And the use of mirrors here in the kitchen is really nice as well. It just adds a little bit of light and a sense of spaciousness, doesn't it?
Yeah, so the mirrors, we backed this pantry, sort of shelf pantry with it, and it sort of tricks the eye into feeling like the space goes a lot further. Because what I often say with tiny house design is that our brains like to feel like we have a lot of space, but the reality is that we don't actually need a lot of space. It's just the feeling. So it's kind of tricking your brain into sensing that space that isn't actually even there. So yeah, mirrors can be handy with that.
It certainly can, very clever. And then I really love what you've done here with this wonderful bay window type extension of your kitchen counter.
Thank you. So yeah, this feature is actually here because of a walkway that's upstairs, which enables you to walk around the bedroom. So we were going to have this lowered area around here, which I didn't want to be part of the main kitchen. So that's why it's sort of a bench top that we don't use that often. It's a little awkward to reach right the way to the end, but it's still quite functional. And then underneath it is just some storage.
Windows can also be used to open the kitchen to outdoor dining and entertaining spaces. Amy and Greg's stunning modern tiny home in Queensland showcases this beautifully. And it's so lovely how this window here can just completely open the kitchen up to the outdoors.
Yeah, so we actually designed a lot of the house around that bifold window there, and when it opens up, it really does, brings the outside in. We use it a lot with, if we have friends over, we meal prep here and just hand the meals over out there, and we can all still talk and communicate together, and this sort of starts to feel more like an island bench in the kitchen rather than a wall separating you guys, and it's really cool.
Kitchen islands can look great and add a huge amount of functionality, adding prep space, storage, and maybe even some extra seating. Lila and Ollie's tiny home incorporated this beautifully into their design. And then over here we have your kitchen, and I really love what you've done with this center island here.
Yes, this was definitely a unique design. We hadn't seen a kitchen layout quite like this in a tiny home. And for us, we love cooking. We spend a lot of time in the kitchen. So definitely was something we wanted, was a good, decent sized kitchen. And having this bench in the middle is amazing. We spend a lot of time here doing work or prepping food, chatting to each other in the evenings. We just utilise it for so many things. It's kind of, for us, doubles as a table. Obviously not having a dining table in here, we use this as our little table area, and it works really well.
If you're a couple who love to cook together, it's nice to spend some time considering how you can both use the space together. Nicola and Aaron's tiny house tackled this with their Galley Style kitchen design. The Galley Style kitchen is really nice as well, where you've got the sink over one side and then the cooker over the other side, which creates a little bit of flexibility in the workspace and makes it easier for you both to be working in the kitchen at the same time.
And there's a lot of that because, you know, you'll have him making bread and me trying to cook something, and then both of us making a smoothie, and then like dishes over here, and he'll be like draining his honey over here. So there's always a lot going on in the kitchen.
Cooking can sure create a whole lot of trash and recycling. One of the coolest ways of dealing with this that we've ever seen was over in Adelaide, where Heidi and Mike built garbage chutes into their box truck home. And then what are the two doors there above the counter?
That was kind of one of those non-negotiable type things for me. Like, I hate taking out the trash kind of thing. So one's a recycle and one's a rubbish bin. So basically there's two shafts that go from each of these doors down to their respective bins. And so you just have to, you know, move the bin up to the curbside when it needs to go. But other than that, you just throw it and forget it kind of thing.
Nobody really likes doing dishes, but it's a fact of life. Obviously, it's simple to find enough space for a compact dishwasher, but even if you do this, I'd still advise you to not skimp on the size of your kitchen sink. A sink that's too small to fit a pot or pan can be infuriating. That's why we made sure to oversize the sink in our own tiny house kitchen. I really like the way that we have our chopping boards, which were cut out of the original bench top and fit snugly above our two large sinks. Having a big sink in a tiny house really makes all of the difference. It makes doing washing up just so much more pleasurable. And because I am quite tall, I'm around 6'4", and so it was really important to me to raise the height of the bench in this tiny house, and you have no idea what a difference that makes for me. If I'm doing dishes at a regular height bench and sink, really quickly I can actually notice a little bit of back pain, whereas actually just doing things higher up at my level makes life so much easier. So I'm very, very thankful for that. And it really, again, just goes to show when you're considerate of little things like that and design the house really for your specifications, it does make life a lot easier. And it's a good height for Rasa too, so we're both very happy with that. She thinks that she's taller than she is, but she is pretty tall. Well, she's not really, she just thinks she's tall. She does them on tiptoes, I don't know. When you're building a tiny house, you're designing a space that's supposed to fit you. Give real consideration to things like standard heights and be prepared to throw convention out the window to make sure that it works for you. Over here we have your kitchen, and I can immediately appreciate this because, like you being tall, having raised counters just makes all the difference in the world, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. So these counters are actually 42 inches tall. A normal countertop is 36 inches. And when I actually go into other people's homes now, the contrast is just amazing because I'm so used to now working at a countertop that fits me. And when other people come into my house, it's sort of an Alice in Wonderland experience for them because they come in and the countertop is about up to here on them. And so it's interesting because when I say I live in a tiny house, people step back and they look at me and they kind of look me up and down and they think, "You live in a tiny house?" And I say, "I do, but it's a tall, tiny house." So when they come in, they're like, oh, I get it. It's all designed for you. So that was part of the process, that I would be able to contribute those ideas even on the spot as we were building.
Ever since I was a kid, mealtime was always family time. It was an opportunity to sit around the table together and share stories from our days. Still to this day, moments shared around the table, eating, telling stories, and playing games is sacred to me. It's for that reason that I believe it's so important to build a table to share meals. If you're short on space, this can be done with fold-up furniture. And you've got a table over here as well with an extendable leaf.
It's important for us to be able to get together as a family and have a meal. That extendable leaf allows us to get two people off the side, one at each end, and we can sit together and have a family meal.
We all have our spots, don't we?
We'll have our dedicated seats.
But if you can find the space, I think it can be hugely advantageous to create a permanent, dedicated dining space in your home. And I really love what you've done here with the dining space as well. It's so unusual to see a dedicated dining space in a tiny house, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a big part of the design, having all these little nooks that you can break away into, and you know, you can have a number of people in this tiny house and everyone could be in a different space doing their own thing if they want to be. So the dining nook's very well used.
Yeah. And even just to have a space where you can sit together as a family, play board games and that sort of thing. It's so nice, eh?
Yeah, it totally is. We're probably inspired a bit from our travels in the caravan too. We had our own little dining nook there, so that was a bit of the inspiration as well. We really loved it as a family, didn't we?
Yeah, we did.
Again, it's so important to truly make the space your own, so don't be afraid to do something that's a little bit crazy. One of my absolute favorite tiny houses that we visited in Florida even managed to fit a pizza oven inside their home. Now, how on earth did you get a pizza oven inside a tiny house?
Well, basically, just put a pizza oven in a tiny house. You just have to make sure that it's insulated properly, because you know what would happen if you had 800 degrees in your fireplace in a little house like this. So it's well insulated, and then, of course, this door, as long as the door is on, it's cool. You can't feel any heat over here. But then when you take the door off, this has been insulated with ceramic cloth.
Right.
And this has several layers of ceramic cloth. You can literally hold a torch to it, and it doesn't get hot.
Wow.
So, and then it's all brick oven inside, and it was all handmade. There's no kit. It was just done one little brick at a time.
And the door handle is an absolute work of art in its own right, isn't it?
It's actually, I had a rosemary bush that I really loved. It was very big, and I had to leave it behind where we moved. So we took some pieces off of it, and we made a handle out of it, fashioned it out of the rosemary wood. So it's pretty special to me.
Just like diet, movement is also essential to our health. And I love tiny homes which incorporate movement and stretching into the kitchen's design. Over in the UK, Cairo's small home is a perfect example of just this. I love that you've got the pull-up bar in the kitchen too.
Yeah, the pull-up bar is essential. And I wanted to make sure that, you know, every time I go through, just a little stretch or a little pull-up, just to keep flexible. Also, this house as well, I feel like a kid in it. I feel like Mowgli, because most places I go, I'm crawling to get somewhere or pulling up to do something. So that just added to that whole notion, I guess.
And integrating fitness and health as a cornerstone of your home design and just making it easy and accessible just makes the whole process so much simpler, doesn't it?
100%. I think that a lot of people find it hard to do fitness or do something that requires them to move outside of just sitting and whatever else, because that's what we do now. We live sedentary lifestyles.
Yeah.
And that just is a downfall, basically. It's where you get injured, it's where you get lazy, it's where you get tired. So I wanted to incorporate something where I had to like climb.
And people think of fitness as being the time that we spend jogging or the time that we spend at the gym, but really it's actually everything that we're doing all day. It's all of those little tiny things that are what adds up to make the real difference.
100%.
One truly challenging aspect of tiny house cooking is dealing with strong aromas. The smell from aromatic cooking, such as curries, can linger in the home for some time, so making sure you've got great fans and ventilation is essential. Better yet, consider creating an outdoor kitchen area to help get some of those potentially overpowering aromas out of the home completely. And this looks like it's a phenomenal space for entertaining, because I see you've actually set up an outdoor kitchen out here as well.
Yes, I do have 2 kitchens in the tiny house. I have, of course, the interior one, and this one is the one outside, which I can orientate in a way where I can face the guests. I can cook very aromatic food.
Always problematic in a tiny house.
Yes, and I'm Asian. I own that, and I'm very much inspired by strong flavors.
Yeah.
And sometimes the ventilator is not quite so powerful enough, so much better to do it outside.
I've always loved the thought that decreasing the footprint of our homes can help to increase the footprint of our gardens. And I would love to encourage people to think of their gardens as an extension to their pantry. To date, one of the most enchanting gardens we've visited was in Australia, where Nirvana and Garima have created a beautiful edible paradise. And you have the most spectacular gardens. Talk to me about this.
Well, this was an old stockyard, so it's been an absolute godsend. We do have a big mob of kangaroos live all over this land here, and you'll see them if you're here in the evening. So going inside the stockyard was fantastic. It meant everything wouldn't get eaten, and the soil was spectacular. I mean, I think this property is at least 100 years old, so it's 100 years of cow poo and horse poo. So we just dug it up and planted, and it's been amazing. The whole summer we've been eating out of it, and yeah, really, that was a big intent for us, that we had to start gardening, you know. I think somebody said one day, oh, but you're living in a tiny house, why are you gardening? And I said, but it's all about the garden for us. You know, the house is just small and manageable, and now we can get out onto the land and plant and get grounded.
Tiny house, but massive garden. I can completely get on board with that.
Yeah.
Remember, above all things, to make the space yours and to design for your needs. Food and cooking is an essential part of our lives, so it's really important that we give this part of our home extra design consideration. If you think that we've missed anything, I would love to hear more of your thoughts and ideas in the comments below. But other than that, I hope that you've found some inspiration here and you can walk away from this video with a few more ideas up your sleeve. We look forward to seeing you again in next week's video. Thanks for watching.